Welcome to our Pirkei Avot shiur. We are on chapter 5, about to start Mishna 23, and we dedicate this episode in memory of Levy ben Moshe Esther and Elishev bat Levy, and also in memory of Tzivia bat Moshe Esther. Okay, so I'll hand you over to Michael.
Thank you, Rav Mashiach. So this Mishnah, again, it is for the first time in a while, it has accreditation. Here, it's accredited to Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema. And what do we know, or what do we not know about this Chacham, or this Rabbi? The Amoraim in the Talmud mention him and his colleagues as ideal examples of masters of Mishnah, although very little is known of his life. We can't find anything to indicate who his colleagues were, or indeed who his teachers or disciples were. In Mishnah 23 of this fifth perek, it omits the title Rabbi. He's referred to as Yehuda ben Tema. Elsewhere in the Talmud, he has the title of Rabbi. This would indicate that he formulated the sayings given in this perek while he was a young man, before he was ordained. One other fact might be inferred from the prayer that concludes his teachings: may it be thy will that the sanctuary be rebuilt speedily in our days. If this is also his and not an addition by other hands that originally brought the fifth perek to a close, it would mean that he lived after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash in 70 CE. Avos Rav Nosson gives another group of fine teachings by him. He says, and I quote, "Love heaven, revere heaven, and be fearful but happy at all the mitzvot. If you have done your fellow a little harm, let it loom large in your sight. If you have done your fellow much good, let it be a small thing in your sight. If your fellow has done you a small favor, let that loom large in your sight. If your fellow has done you great harm, let it be a small matter in your sight." The wonderful words elsewhere from Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema.
In fact, I can interrupt and say that there's a continuation of that Braita. There's one more line which is not always in every version of it. It says, "Learn to accept pain and forgive those who insult you." That's basically the summation of that Braita.
Right. So let's look at the Mishnah, and here. It starts, Yehuda ben Tema Omer. Yehuda ben Tema said, "Have az kanamer, be bold as a leopard, v'kal kanesher, light as an eagle, ratz ketzvi, swift as a deer, v'gibor ka'ari, and as strong as a lion, le'asot ratzon avicha shebashamayim, to do the will of your Father who is in heaven. Hu haya omer, he used to say, az panim legehinnom, the brazen faced is headed for Gehinnom, Uvosh Panim, Legan Eden, and the shamefaced for the Garden of Eden. And may it be thy will, O Lord our God, and God of our fathers, that the temple be rebuilt speedily in our days, and grant us portion in thy Torah.
Just to interrupt you there, sorry. In the Art Scroll edition here, I should add on that it's listed that the Hu Haya Omer is listed as a separate Mishnah, Mishnah 24.
Okay.
So in this episode, we're going to be, as Michael has done, we're going to be combining 23 and 24.
Great. So also I'm going to be referring to commentary by Irving Bunim in this episode. So this concept of looking at animals and kind of using these animals as a kind of emblem, this is called Totemism in other religions and other faith groups, but this is not what it refers to in our Mishnah. Totemism is a primitive group or clan would regard an animal as its emblem or object of worship. It would consider itself somehow related to the animal and seek to emulate its admirable ways and acquire its good abilities and powers. From long ago, time immemorial then, man recognized in the beast certain capacities and traits which by themselves were far superior to his own and therefore to be envied. But what our Mishnah is referring to is not borrowed from the concept of totemism. We know sometimes you see these religions or ancient religions, they used to have the head of a lion and the body of a man, and these
like
sort
Egyptians.
of things. Egyptian and other things. There was, but they were actually dressed up like that. You know, it would be like a rituals and things like that. But Judaism does not. It just admires qualities of four creatures: the boldness of the leopard, the agility of the eagle, the swiftness of the deer, and the strength of the lion. So Yehuda ben Tema tells us to strive to emulate them and better serve him, to do the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let us look at references in Chazal, from Chazal. Job, who he said, he teaches us through the beasts of the earth and makes us wise through the birds of the sky. And Rabbi Yochanan comments that had we not received the Torah, we would learn modesty in personal functions from the cat, the wrongness of robbery from the ants, marital faithfulness from the dove, etc. This is from, we learn in Eruvin 100 Omid base. So in this vein comes Yehuda ben Tema's clear dictum: when tempted to do something wrong, let your character be as strong as a lion to overcome and control your evil inclination. When we obey the Torah, only to find that people deride us and try to turn us away from our religious beliefs, let us be as bold and as fearless as the leopard. Do you find yourself in a community not conducive to the practice of the Jewish faith? Then you must flee like a deer to somewhere that favours religious growth and observance. And if we see how shallow is the level of people around us in the study and practice of our religious heritage, it is for us to rise as the eagle above the common level on wings of perseverance and devotion. So let's look at, let's analyse this a little bit more closely. Let's look at the words of the Mishnah. So bold, us as the leopard. We must, even in our times today, as we're recording this, there was terrible problems in the land of Israel, and it seems like if you walk in the streets and even in London, that you are in danger, even by just wearing a kippah, you are in danger of being assaulted, or anti-Semitism is rife nowadays. People are brazen-faced about being anti-Semitic, and the concept of trying to practice in public. Many years ago, we felt safe if we had to daven somewhere. We had to get together and daven somewhere outdoors or in the public. It wouldn't be a problem. Today, if you did that, you'll probably be shouted at. So even more so in today's time, you have to be as bold as a leopard in your observance of, in your public observance. This is very, very important. You must not fear anybody. The only thing you should fear is God. And it says in the Mishnah in Brachot that when you're in prayer, even if a king asks you how you are, you do not answer. Even if a serpent coils itself around your foot, you do not interrupt. This is from Brachot 6b. Brachot 5:1. It requires concentration so intense that it shuts out the world. With the fearlessness of a panther or a leopard, the observant Jew achieves this through total concentration. So let's move on. The commentary on Yen Levanon notes that the word az, bold, also implies a constancy and intensity that ultimately prevail. In the imagery of King Solomon, and I quote, "Love is as strong as death." This is from Proverbs 21:30. Death constantly encroaches through a lifetime of aging until by sheer intensity and perseverance it triumphs. So should our love be for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The love we express through the Torah and the mitzvot, so constant, intense, persistent, that it must prevail against all obstacles. And I'd like to quote also from the Sefer Musar. Sefer Musar writes, that the leopard is a particularly apt figure, and I quote, he should not be ashamed, as this is a student we're talking about, you should be bold as a student if you don't understand something. And I quote, he should not be ashamed to ask questions during the lessons, rather than say, I understand, when he does not. Even if the teacher has taught him something once, twice, or 3 times, and he has not grasped it, let him bid his instructor, teach me again, until he understands. Though his teacher may get angry at him, let him not be ashamed. For if the leopard with no intelligence turns bold and daring until he seizes his prey for food to survive, how much more so should a human being with intelligence be bold and undaunted to gain eternal life for his spirit in the worlds to come. Wonderful commentary there from Sefer Musa. Now let's analyze the concept of being as light as an eagle. You know, sometimes we have our personal views on Torah and we try to impress them on other people, and sometimes we have to be brave and even as an eagle, we can be accused of having our heads in the clouds. But this is not what it means. It means you must be as light as an eagle. You must raise yourself. There is a symbolic value to an eagle. King David wrote, your youth will be renewed like the eagle. I think that's from Tehillim 103:5. And also Rashi comments that there's a midrashic passage about a species of eagle that when it grows old, it returns to its youth. I'd like to expand on that and tell you that this midrashic comment is of an unknown source, although it may be related to a passage in Midrash Rabbah of Bereshis 19:5, that all creatures but the phoenix ate of the forbidden fruit with Adam and Chava, and some Chachomim maintain that it lives 1,000 years, after which its body is consumed, leaving only as much as an egg, out of which it grows new limbs and lives on. In his commentary, Rav David Kimchi writes on the verse, and I quote, it is said that the eagle is physically renewed every 10 years, and so did Rabbi Sadia Gaon write that the eagle flies above all other birds, soaring high into the heavenly firmament until it nears the elemental fiery heat. Then, because of the great heat, it hurls itself into the sea and is renewed of limb, returning to its youthful vigor. This occurs every 10 years until it reaches the age of 100. At 100, it soars high as usual and hurls itself into the sea, but then it dies there. So this perhaps is our instruction in life, to rise and renew yourself like a phoenix. You must be prepared to die within. Your ego should die, and your essence should be combined with God's, and you shall be renewed, like reborn, so to speak. This should be the aim of your life. So it's worth too noting that a beautiful point made in the Sefer Musa is, and I quote, be light and agile as an eagle before scholars of Torah, to honor them and to serve them, paying no heed to your own honor. The simile of the eagle is to teach or remind us that although it is generally far up in the sky, it is also prone to coming down low. So must Torah scholars be. Though they have an acute learning and sharp reasoning, let no one become filled with self-importance before his teachers, so that he should not be able to learn. And let's look at the next reference, the fleet as a deer. There is, and I quote, the way of your mitzvot will I run. This is from Tehillim 119:32. For thou dost broaden my heart. Also another reference in the Talmud we read, said Abaya, to go to the synagogue you should certainly run, for it is stated, let us give chase to know the Lord. Said Rav Svid, when I used to see the rabbinic scholars running to the Torah lecture on the Shabbos, I thought they were profaning the day of rest. Once I heard Rav Talfon's teaching in the name of Rav Yeshua ben Levy, and I quote, a man should always run in the matter of mitzvot, even on Shabbos. I ran too. This is recorded in, I think it's Brachot 6b. And the Midrash finds a precedent in Tanakh, after the angel told of Samson's coming birth to the future mother, her husband Manoah yearned to see the angel. When he reappeared to her, we read, and I quote, "Then the woman hurried and she ran and told her husband." Says the Midrash, this teaches us that whatever the righteous do, they do swiftly. So yes, we have to run to mitzvot and run to service of Hashem. And now a deer will speed through the forest on swift feet, not only to escape a natural enemy, but also to get to a vital objective, perhaps to water or a running brook when it's thirsty. Since our Torah is likened to life-giving water, as we see in various sources, Ta'anit, Baba Kama, Avodah Zarah, Mechilta, Rabbi Yehuda ben Tamar may imply that we should not hesitate to get a proper ruling or viewpoint in a question of Torah. Scripture writes, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tudov, justice, justice you shall pursue. And the Talmud interprets, seek, go after a fine Bet Din, after Rabbi Eliezer to Lida, after Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai to Burachail, near Yavne. This is referenced in Sanhedrin 32 Amud Base. So the search for Torah, truth and justice may lead over a rough and winding trail, but let nothing daunt you. Follow with the sure-footed speed of the deer. There is little else of equal value. And the last reference is as strong as a lion. So the Hebrew adjective is gibar, used about Samson, Shimshon HaGibar. It clearly denotes powerful muscles and brute strength. But as mankind progresses, physical prowess loses its importance. Then Gibor must rather indicate moral strength or courage. And so Ben Zoma taught, who is strong? He who subdues his evil inclination. Yehuda ben Tamar would seem to refer also to a person's relation with others. And if I can refer again to the great Sefer Musar, it's consistent, it applies this to the Torah student too. And I quote from the Sefer Musar, he is to gather his strength in determination and rise at night, so to engage in study both day and night, giving no sleep to his eyes or slumber to his lids. And let him not say, I have learnt much written and oral Torah, I will let my spirit enjoy its ease. Let him know rather for certain that far more he has to learn remains what he has not learned, and let him not fritter away his days to no purpose. The simile of the lion is to teach that he needs to strive with all his strength for nothing else but the Torah, and that gives him life to his spirit, even as a lion will claw its prey with all its might for its food. So that's quoted from Sefer Musar. And this recalls a Talmudic passage. David HaMelech wrote in Tehillim 119:62, midnight I rise to praise you for the ordinances of your righteousness. Said Rabbi Zerah, until midnight King David would doze off like a horse standing. From then on he would gather strength like a lion to study. Rav Ashi said, until midnight he would sit engaged in Torah study. From then on he devoted himself to hymns of praise. And now that completes the analysis of the four concepts of animal abilities. Let's move on to the next section of the Mishnah, which where it says, he used to say, the brazen face, the azpanim, is for Gehinnom. So this is basically telling us that the people who are brazen-faced are destined for hell. So we refer to the commentary in Magen Avot points out that Yehuda ben Tamar's first teaching with the four similes is in marked contrast to a previous Mishnah that approved strongly of the three qualities of Avraham. They mention in the previous Mishnah a good eye, a humble temperament, and a lowly spirit are all the qualities of Avraham. But should the religious Jew be good to everybody indiscriminately, always humble and self-effacing? Should he live like in an indolent manner, since he wishes no conquest or pleasures. To such a notion, Yehuda ben Tema's first teaching comes as a corrective. In serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, be bold, agile, swift and brave. You should act incisively without hesitation. Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema's second teaching comes as a corrective to the first, that the pendulum of human nature should find a middle course between the extremes. We know the Rambam also talks about finding the counterbalance, bringing yourself back to the thing. So I'm going to quote again for the Sefer Musar, and I quote, having ruled above that a man should be bold in heaven's affairs, he now states that you should take care not to be bold, not to be brazen-faced generally, until this quality becomes fixed in you. For boldness is a mitzvah only in chastising the wicked for their deeds, as Chazal writes, as Tanakh writes about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the crooked you do deal perversely. That's from Samuel 22:7 and Psalms 18:27.
Well, that's what Yaakov Avinu did. Yaakov Avinu dealt with his father-in-law Lavan in the way of a trickster. The only way he can to deal with the trickster is to trick him, to deal with him in the sly way that he does.
Yeah. Also, if I can reference more places in Tanakh, there is Ecclesiastes 8:1. The wisdom of a man illuminates his face. So long as boldness remains in the corner of his heart, controlled by wisdom, it is good. When boldness travels upwards and outwards and replaces the wisdom in his face, a person becomes azpanim, brazen face. So he sets off on the road to perdition. As the Talmud says, and I quote, there is no repentance for the brazen-faced. This is from Kala Rabati, chapter 2. Downright arrogance and impudence is a heady wine that exhilarates the senses with a feeling of power. It becomes an incurable addiction. And the second half of this concept of balancing quotes in the Mishnah, and the shamefaced are headed for paradise. Yehuda ben Tema reinforces a point. There are times for bold, incisive action, but if your basic character trait should be Avraham's his style, primarily bashfulness or shamefaced, or a shy desire to avoid the limelight, as we know, when they received the Torah at Sinai, Bnei Israel pleaded with Moshe, "Do you speak with us and we will hear, but let not God speak with us lest we die." And Moshe Rabbeinu said to his people, "Do not fear, for God has come to prove and to elevate you, and that his awe may be upon your countenance, that you may not sin." This last part, said the Talmud, simply means bashfulness, the quality of being shamefaced. So psychology recognizes the importance of shame in our growth. The human being enters life as an animal, imperiously demanding his wishes and ruthlessly moving to achieve them. Only the dawning realization of shame, a quality as far as we know absent in animals and thus unique to man, makes him learn to control and modify his passionate demands. And shame inherently involves the concept of the face. The child realizes that as he sees others with faces, so does he have a face which others see, and because he is seen, he can be subjected to shame. I think when you blush, it's not something you can ever fake. If you blush, it's an internal reaction.
It's a reaction, for sure.
And finally, I'd like to conclude this with that last saying of "May it be thy will, O God." So this is puzzling at first. Why this prayer should appear at this point in Pirkei Avot? The Meiri suggests that perhaps originally Pirkei Avot ended here, and the passages which follow were added later. Hence, the prayer came as a fitting close, much as we normally would add each perek with a passage beginning Rav Chananya ben Akasha Omer. In fact, according to Abarbanel, old Sephardic manuscripts lacked the following long Mishnah. Beginning, he used to say, and so the commentary Sefer Musar, leaving only the brief statements of Ben Bagbag and Ben Hehe, which could well have been added on later. Some manuscripts add after our Mishnah the teaching of Shmuel the little one, which we have in Avot 4:24, and bring our Mishnah 24 at the very end, making it another teaching of Ben Hehe. Since the passages which follow were likely added later, at first in no certain order, until our version became the accepted tradition. The Vilna Gaon also recognizes this text as a fitting close, thus belonging at the ends of the Perek. But our version, now the accepted tradition, may have its merit and its reasons. First, Yehuda ben Tamar taught that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu's cause needs it, be strong, be ready for strong, swift, decisive action. Is this a teaching for a people living peacefully in their own land with the Beis Hamikdash as their religious nucleus? Hardly. It is more likely a dictum for the exile that began with the Beis Hamikdash destruction. Exile brought our people to strange lands, alien cultures, hostility and oppression. Conditions there would truly demand the qualities of a leopard and a lion, an eagle and a deer. If our age-old faith was to survive, these qualities must be used against so many enemies within and without, enemies overt or covert, obvious or insidious. It is necessary to fight everything from laziness to the enticing glamour of the majority culture, and the battle is wearing, for it continues endlessly in each generation until the old must relinquish to the young their weapons of a mighty faith and a bold, dauntless perseverance. But as we noted, in the constant need for the brave rapid action, there is a danger of becoming brazen-faced, impudent, and thus offensive to heaven itself. For this, though we have a corrective, Yehuda ben Tamar continues, the brazen face goes to purgatory, the shame-faced to paradise. He thus reminds us that bashfulness, awareness of shame, is a veritable cornerstone of the authentic Jewish character descended from Avraham. No matter how hard and stern our actions, for the sake of heaven, we will never become hardened and brazened within. If we remain true, observant children of Avraham, by making the innate Jewish character shy, the Almighty safeguards us through all of the arrogance we must adopt in battling for our faith in exile. And that concludes Mishna 23 of Perek 5.
Fantastic, very good. As we hurtle towards the end of the chapter, next time we're going to be doing Mishna 25, which is the continuation of Yehuda ben Tamar, which we did not do today. That's about the Ben Chamesh Shanim Mikra, etc. So until then, we wish you a wonderful and blessed week.